All right, so I have a question from a viewer that I wanted to answer. They wanted to know if it was hot in the cabin, you know, for running the stove, what it's like in the cabin. Well, the answer is it's hot. You know, the wood cook stove is actually a relatively new invention. Before that, that was hearths, but they were used for many decades, and people used them. They didn't have summer kitchens, okay? I mean, yeah, if you live down south, lots of people develop summer kitchens. But for a majority of people, they were just in your home, and that's what you had, and that's what you used. My brother-in-law he's about 70, and I remember asking him one time, he grew up in Arkansas. Arkansas is a bloody hot place. And he said that he had a wood stove, his mom had a wood stove growing up, and I said, well, how did she do that? This has been years ago that I asked him, because I hadn't started using the wood stove year-round. He said, well, I remember that she would, you know, do the cooking she needed to do in the morning and let it go out at, you know, rest of the day. So those words always stuck with me, especially after I started using the stove year round. And so for the most part, and it doesn't work every day, because if I fall behind on dishes, or if we have laundry to do, or we need to get washed up, we have extra water that we have to heat up. I can only heat up 25 gallons of water at a time. I have 4 or 5 gallon pans, and I have a reservoir. And I use hot water for my dishes. I use hot water for my laundry. If we want a bath, we have to use that, obviously. So some days just don't work out to where I can heat up 20, 25 gallons of water and call it good. But for the most part, we do try to do that. I try to do my cooking in the morning. If I have to start a fire for anything later in the day, I try to make it a quick fire, which means I don't use logs. Okay, logs extend the life of a fire, especially if you have coals. I try to use stuff that's going to burn up quick but be hot enough to do my thing. Our dream is to someday have a summer kitchen. That is not the case right now. Michigan has also been under, and I don't know if it's lifted, but they've been under a no open burn ban since the pandemic hit, because they did not want to have a situation where they ended up using first responder resources due to a fire or something. So we aren't cooking outside over the open fire. We do have the grill. But we don't really use it. I don't grill. Ron does grill, and RJ grills. And Ron and RJ are usually busy. So by the time they're done outside and want something to eat, that means I've had to have it together inside. So we did intentionally, because when we built this cabin, I'd already had several years experience cooking on a wood stove year round. And so I intentionally put a window right next to the stove so that it acts as an exhaust. And a lot of the heat goes out. We have battery operated fans, thanks to my sister. I love you, Sherry. Hot up here, it's hot when it's hot. Thankfully, it doesn't last long. We conditioned ourselves years ago to live without air conditioner, but that air circulating from a fan is a godsend. And we use the fan. It's a Rigid fan is the brand, and it runs on a battery, which we charge on our inverter generator. And we position it so that it's helping to push the heat out that window. And then we have another fan that circulates the air, and it makes a huge difference. Is it the perfect situation? No, of course not. But you know what? It's a doable situation, and it works for us. I think one of the preconceived notions about homesteading, going off grid, is, we've talked about this 100 times before, is everything has to be perfect, and you have to have the perfect solution. Well, people homestead and lived life just in general for decades without the perfect situation. It's taking what you have and making the absolute best out of it. And for now, this is the best that we have. So we have to make sure that everybody does their best to stay cool. and including our animals. You guys, if you watched the video the other day, you saw that we took our St. Bernard down to the creek. He's a chicken. He won't go down there by himself anymore. And I was paying attention to him. I was trying to keep him outside because there was a breeze outside that day, and it is cooler than in the house at times. So he was a little bit warmer than I was comfortable with, so we took him down to the creek. Our other dogs, they're short hair or they don't have the extra skin. We do have another long hair dog, but she's doesn't have the thick skin like our St. Bernard, who was not built for the heat, by the way. So of course he wasn't built for snow either. He is a homebody. He wants to be inside. So yeah, you know, that gets pretty hot, and we just have to learn to work with it. We've learned how to do quick fires, and we've learned how to try to do our work around the correct time of day. Canning is interesting, to say the least. I am considering, if this heat wave continues to go on, I may end up getting a turkey fryer burner. I have one down south, but that doesn't help me down here, does it? Or going ahead and getting the propane burner like we've talked about in the past. It's not my priority, so it's not something that I keep thinking about going to do. It's just something I say, oh, I should do that. Most people have bug seasons that aren't that bad. They think they're bad, but they have no idea. If you've never lived in the north or vacationed in the UP or lived up in, I don't know, I know there's other areas that are horrible, parts of Alaska and Canada, especially living in a cabin that is not sealed up. Bug season is really nasty, and it doesn't take long to end up with this. This looks totally disgusting on the window. Look at the screen down here. When I say it doesn't take long, it's like maybe a day or 2 days worth of bug guts. So we really have to be on top of our windows to make them not nasty. Y'all have seen what we have to wear outside during the bug seasons, the head nets and stuff. Fortunately, in the big spectrum of things, mosquitoes season doesn't last that long, and what I mean by that is they usually fight each other. You can see them knocking each other out, see who's going to get your blood, because it's on such demand out there. Now, we have mosquitoes all year round, but we have about 2 or 3, maybe 4 weeks, depending on the year, where they are just atrocious. They're atrocious inside and outside, and you go around and you kill them inside all day long and at night. And when that's done, we move into no-see-um season. I would rather have mosquitoes than no-see-ums. No-see-ums are about a 2-week run here, and they are hideous. I never knew what a no-see-um was until we moved up here. Then from no-see-ums, we move into technically the black flies. We've had horse flies throughout the summer. We do mosquitoes, then we do no-see-ums, and no-see-ums come in at the end of mosquito season. No-see-ums move out, and the black flies come in, and the whole time we deal with horse flies. So that's the joy of living in the forest in the UP. So not only do we have to wash our windows, but we have to wipe off our screens. I usually go around with a feather duster and brush off the screens, because you have to get the carcasses off there. I know that just sounds really gross, doesn't it? Especially if you live in a sterile environment. And living like this is not a sterile environment, especially where we choose to live.
Would you care to know something?
What?
Mail doesn't run on the 4th of July.
You know what? You're right. It doesn't run on the 4th of July. Well, we aren't government workers. We don't get those type of days off, do we?
Correct.
So, how was the well?
Good.
Any visitors?
We were just getting the last one up, and somebody pulled right in behind us.
Did they keep their social distance?
They stayed in the car till we...
That was nice of them.
It was, but they were about that far away from
Let's see. You want me to set this on my lap?
Why don't you get a little closer?
How many bucket containers of water did you get?
All that were empty. We had a few full ones left still. So.
Oh, we could have emptied them. I didn't even know you
It's a
guys
good thing
left.
we didn't.
I didn't even know you guys. I was getting ready to come up and tell you, go get that water.
Busy road.
Yes.
But a lot of old cars.
Aw.
And a couple of nice motorcycles.
Oh, I bet RJ like those.
Oh, you should have seen him. Oh, oh, oh.
Mosquitoes. All right, let's see. What else did we need to discuss? Now, on to homeschooling. We have been homeschooling. We've done 4 boys, right? And we've done it since 1997. We have tried a lot of different ways to homeschool, but one thing that a lot of different curriculums. The one thing that and Ron and I just keep coming back to is that learning should be something that the children love. There are things you have to learn in life that you probably don't like, okay? It's the basic instructions you don't like. But when people go to college or when people get a higher education, they usually follow something that interests them. So our theory has always been, let their interests guide them. And we're pretty relaxed as far as we don't have a dead set. We have to be, doing school at this time, or we have to do this on this day. If I look at the weather and I see we've got 10 days of rain coming, which hasn't happened for a while because we're kind of in a dry spell. But if in the past when I've done that and I see we've got 3 nice days ahead of us, I'm going to make sure the kids get out and get a lot of sunshine and playtime at that time, because whatever we don't do during those 3 days, we certainly can pick back up on the 10 days straight of rain. And I know some people, the way they school, that would not work for them. And for some children, it doesn't work because some children need structure. Josiah is that way. He needs structure. RJ's not. Zebulun and Simeon, they definitely need semi-structure because they like it. That's what makes them function. But they also need flexibility. And we try to listen to the things that they're interested in at a particular time to let that guide us into what they learn. Here's an example. Writing, when you're learning to write and you're learning to craft a story or to be able to articulate ideas with writing, usually, you can follow a book, and that's great, or you can follow the child's interest. And Zebulun just and he did this on his own. This wasn't even a given lesson, but he's wanting to start a newspaper. What child doesn't want to start a newspaper, right? Saya wanted to start a newspaper, and Zebulun wants to start a newspaper. So he created his first edition the other day, and this is what he did.
The Northwoods Chronicle. The U.S. has more COVID-19 cases than any other country, even China and Italy. And China is where it began. Riots have been happening throughout the U.S. Peaceful protesters were protesting. The sheriff ordered his men to lay down their batons. Then he asked, "What can we do?" And the protesters replied, "March with us."
You should quote where that happened. That happened in Lansing, Michigan, because that's not how all the protests have gone. So that's important as a newspaper man to point out those facts. Got it?
Okay. Maybe I can use down there.
Okay. Good job.
Thank you.
You did real good.
Did you write that by yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, yes, good job.
So I think the thing is for us that's been important in our family is that we've tried to teach more than anything that learning should be a lifelong endeavor. And if it's done in such a way that a child just can't stand to go sit down to learn, or can't stand to pick up a book, or can't stand to try, to do this, they're not going to do it. They're going to rather sit down in front of a DVD or a Game Boy or whatever the latest game things are now. And also with our life in the homestead, which there's plenty of learning to do in our lifestyle, we've been more at ease with the way we structure our learning, our intentional learning, so that they can expand and investigate their interest. And what we found is typically they excel when they're given that freedom. And don't misread me. I know some of you are going to say, well, you got to have structure. Absolutely. But there also has to be freedom to investigate within structure. Because if it's all dogma, if it's all just no deviation at all from structure, it's just stuff you regurgitate up. You know, if you all you're learning is, say, for example, with the Word of God, if all you're learning is just stuff that is taught textbook, if you don't let that child dive in or see the Word of God lived out, they're just going to regurgitate what has been indoctrinated in them. They're not going to have that relationship. And it's the same thing with formal education. A child can make it through school, even if they don't like it, and they're not going to retain anything because they've regurgitated what's been put in. It's never taken root, and it's just something they want to get over. That was me. I just wanted to get over with. I did not like school. I did not care for it at all. In fact, it just was not my cup of tea. And we didn't want that for our kids. You know, we wanted our kids to embrace and love the joys of learning, because there's great joy in learning. So where are we doing this? Hopefully not by the snake.
But you like that little thing.
I just don't want you to kill it. I feel bad for it. It survived your brother and father's attempts
It's
to...
a snake. It deserves to
I'm
die.
the last person to have compassion for snakes. You know that. But since
Apparently
it hasn't...
not. Yeah, you keep, don't kill it.